All right, so we are delving straight into the details of our big subjects we have for you this morning, and it has to do with the fact that following the demise of Madam Akua Donkor, something has to change, especially on the notice of poll and the ballot paper that the EC is expected to print. You know that she is the founder of the Ghana Freedom Party. A meeting is expected to be held to decide on whether or not the next line of action for the Electoral Commission. Madam Akua Donkor died last night, sparking concerns about the potential impact on the polls. And in the next few minutes, we'll be trying to make sense of what exactly is the next major move by her party and, by extension, the Electoral Commission of the Republic on the way forward. Joseph Akablaze, my colleague, who will be helping us understand what's happening behind the decisions of the EC and the Ghana Freedom Party. He's with me here in studio. Let's delve right into the conversation now. Joseph, thank you for joining us. Maybe before we get into the specifics, where were you? How did you hear of the demise of the passing of Madam Akua Donkor? I
mean, it's one of those days, very sad news that came in. I actually slept quite early last night, but when I woke up, there were a number of messages that had come in suggesting that she had unfortunately died. And so first, our condolences to the family. Then, as news people, what we tried to do was to try to get a necessary confirmation. It took a bit of time, but eventually that confirmation came through, and we've now been trying to understand what happens beyond this happening. Very tough time for the family. We understand they are particularly based in the Ashanti region, and so some series of family meetings are taking place as they intend to inform this nation, for that matter, and also the Electoral Commission of this particular unfortunate incident that has taken place.
Right. All right. So now let's go into the details and profile who Madam Akua Donkor is, especially for those who may not know her well. In this case, we might say was, because she's passed on to glory. But let's go to her background. How did she get into politics?
I mean, she's known as a cocoa farmer who in 2012 just declared her interest in wanting to contest the national elections. And when we ran through the details, you realize that she was unsuccessful twice, but eventually she made it in 2020. So many people know her as the founder and leader, flag bearer and presidential candidate of the Ghana Freedom Party. In terms of this upcoming election, on the ballot that was done, she was number 3, a very important position that she got over there. She had tried to contest 2012 polls as an independent candidate, but was disqualified by the Electoral Commission. She failed to contest the 2016 polls as well. Then she contested in 2020, where she placed 5th out of 12 candidates. She managed to get 5,330. That is 0.04% of the valid votes.
And then it's also interesting to know that in 2012, which was her first attempt, many described it as comical, but she had a different perspective to Ghana's politics and thought that she had something to offer, especially for women, rural farmers, and people who are almost always underrepresented. So she took the step. She was disqualified by the Electoral Commission. That didn't deter her. Yeah. She came back again in 2016, and in that year she was also disqualified by the Electoral Commission, but decided to throw her weight behind John Dramani Mahama. In recent times, she's had a fracas with the NDC, specifically attacking John Mahama. People didn't know that she had supported him in time past, but it's interesting to know that.
And even during the discussions at IPAC, where she actually took on the NDC quite strongly, you recall that she had also basically backed the Electoral Commission. Now, this history puts it into context as well, because you recall 2012, she couldn't contest. In 2016 was when Charlotte Osei had undertaken that disqualification that affected a number of people, including the Progressive People's Party, having to go to court for the court to allow them in. So it was a very difficult year for her. And then she managed to make it in 2020. So it came as no surprise that she's been of praise for the Electoral Commission particularly. We all saw those videos of her interaction and talking about how good Jane Mensah is and how she believes that she is a competent person to manage the affairs of the Electoral Commission. So that is by way of how she managed to get onto the scene. Now, this is where the entire Tony issue rests now, because the question now, many people are asking that, what happens now that she's been disqualified? And we have to put it in context. Right here in Ghana, there was a situation, an assemblyman election, where the assemblyman contestant died just before the elections. Now, the process was not done to have the person taken off the roll, and they voted. And quite strangely, they voted massively for the dead person, and he won the election. And so it created a bit of a problem. And so those are some of the challenges that our laws seek to address. And so first, from the 1992 Constitution, the governing law of Ghana, it says in Article 54 of the 1992 Constitution that where the close of nominations but before the election, one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations, and where the death occurs at any time within 25 days before the election in that constituency or unit shall be postponed for 21 days. And so the first context we need to understand is the fact that nominations have closed.
Yes.
So that is where we are at this stage. And we have one of the candidates dying. And so per the Constitution, it says that a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations. And so we know that nominations have also closed.
Yes.
But the EC's regulations give some further sense or idea of what ought to happen in such a scenario. So we go a step further and look at Regulation 13, Sub-Regulation 4 of CI 127, which is the public regulations law that governs elections and all other public elections. It says contested election and death of a candidate. Where are the close of nominations, but before the election, one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations. And so this is very similar to what is here in the Constitution. Right. Basically, a reproduction of what the constitutional architecture provides. There's another death that is also provided, but there are those who are, the legal experts are already making the point that, well, they want to differentiate that one from this particular situation, because in that particular instance, it says where an election is to be held and a candidate dies on the eve of the election, and proof of the death of the candidate is given to the returning officer before the commencement of the poll, the returning officer shall put on hold proceedings in relation to the election and inform the commission. So the first point they make is that this ought to deal with the eve of the election, and we are nowhere close to the eve of the election, which is the point some are already making. But if you go a step further on that provision, it says the commission shall, on receipt of the information under sub-regulation 1, adjourn the poll and allow a period of 10 days for the political party to which the candidate belongs to nominate a new candidate as well. Right. Now, the problem with this particular provision, and if you go a step further, is the fact that it bars independent candidates from making such changes.
Right.
And so there are those who may hold the view that, well, if you go back to the constitutional provision, there's no such limit. And also because we are not at the eve of the election, and rather we are just at the stage where nominations have closed, but before the election taking place, one of the candidates has died. And it means that what should happen ordinarily is that a further period of 10 days should be allowed for the nominations. Right. Now, it raises the legal issue of when the 10 days is open, who are they allowing? Are they going to allow everyone in? Because we know that there are some individuals like Bernard Mona who have been disqualified, who had made a point that if they had been given the opportunity to make changes, they would have been able to be on the ballot paper. Then there are also those who make the point that, well, the 10 days that they open should be limited to that political party and not open to any other person. So if the party wants to replace the candidate, they would have to decide that leg. The other questions that is again throws up is that, well, if the party decides they're not going to replace the candidate, they're going to leave on the ballot, what does the EC do? Have they printed a ballot paper? Are they printing new ones? Are they keeping it on the ballot paper? Because it also has implications. And we've demonstrated that in relation to.
And it's also interesting that the Electoral Commission is bound by all these regulations themselves. Secondly, until a formal notification is given them by either the party or, in this case, it can't be the family, it should be the party, to the Electoral Commission that this candidate has passed, they cannot take action. Then it raises the question, what then happens to the arrangement on the ballot paper, which has already been printed or has started, printing has started, and she is number 3 on the ballot. Does the EC blank out number 3 or take out number 3 and shift the other candidates to fill that slot? That leaves a number of questions for the EC to answer.
In fact, a very tough time for the commission, and they would have to first, we've checked with our sources, then we are understanding they are approaching it in 2 ways. The first is that they are waiting for the notification to come from either the party or the family to inform them of that incident. Then they would have to now meet and decide as a commission the next step. And the point you made about the balloting is very important, because if you remember, during the balloting that took place by the Electoral Commission, they allowed the political parties to ballot first before the independent candidates. And so some of the political parties are not necessarily satisfied with their slots. I know some who may even want to even be number 3. But here's a situation where they are not going to get a chance to be there, but the person who's going to be number 3 is not there on the ballot. And so the question remains that, well, if you are going to blank it out, why not do it all over again? Well, the number 1 want to relinquish that, because, mind you, they've already printed campaign materials and everything
with the numbers on it.
It's a very worrying situation for the parties. I mean, they've gone around, some have composed songs, some are saying they are not going to allow someone to break the 8, so they are number 8. Someone says, I'm going to be number 1, so I'm number 1. They are all others who have ascribed various meanings to it. So it has implications generally for how everything plays out. But what's important in all of this is the fact that the Constitution provides a guide, and 54 is the instructive one. It says, where are the close of nominations, but before the election, one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations, and where death occurs at any time within 25 days. So we are not even at the 25 days limit yet. So we are still within that period. So in the next coming days, what we expect is that the commission ought to meet and take a decision on what they are going to do going forward. And with the concerns you've raised yourself, it will be very important that they engage the political parties in order for them to reach some form of understanding as well.
Yeah, and the 10 days mentioned here in the Constitution is specific to the date the EC is notified. So the 10 days starts counting from when the EC is notified. So all these days that they are yet to be given formal information about the demise of Akua Donkor, nothing, we can't start counting until until the EC is formally given information that she's passed on. Then the 10 days starts from there. And it says it opens nomination or allows nominations. Does that could also, I mean, another question being asked is, what can the party do in this instance? Maybe later we can look at the provisions of the party. Now, it raises the question of the political parties we have in the country, their structures that they run by. So indirectly, some people are asking, does that mean that the running mate that Madam Akua Donkor had chosen, popularly known as Roman Father, does he automatically come and replace her on the ballot? Will the party allow that? Does the party even have the structures in place to come to that agreement that go ahead and replace us?
I mean, for all of these questions, since 2012, 2016, 2020, since she read ahead, she has basically been the face of the party. I mean, it will be difficult. I'm sure if you even do a simple Google search, you are looking for who the chairperson of the party is. I don't think you find any of that. She has basically been the one running this particular party, and it's a political party with very interesting ideals. I mean, it's very difficult to place them in any of the spectrums that we normally have them to be in, whether they are center left or center right. But generally, very pro-African policies, talking about scrapping taxes, scrapping import duties, free ports, and allowing things to come in like that. And I mean, a candidate of her nature, I mean, she was one who it's not lettered. I mean, it's someone who more or less many people even tended to look out and say that why is she even contesting in the first place? Particularly because of some of the views she expressed on various national issues. And I go back to the IPAC discussion again because some had taken a view that she had quite unfairly taken on the opposition NDC, for instance. And so that again comes with its own challenges. But what I see happening, and that's why it comes back to the communication that will take place, that will be very important. Because the EC would await the notification and also want to get a sense of which direction the party is leaning towards. Because when you look at the first part of the regulation, this one doesn't place any restriction anywhere. It is the second part which some are already saying that this one should be limited to the eve of the election. Because in this particular instance, there's a restriction when you go on subsequently on independent candidates. But for political parties, the parties are allowed to replace them. So if we are going to interpret the 50 provision to mean that we're actually going to allow the party affected to just replace their candidate. And the question that remains is that, is Ghana Freedom Party intending to replace Madam Akua Donkor as the flag bearer running or presidential candidate? The party may not be interested in doing that. And so that could also come with its own
And that's the challenge with having one-man parties or one-person parties. And probably another time we'll probably look at the requirements of setting up a political party and whether or not the EC has been lazy in implementing its own laws about what you need as a group or as an individual if you want to form a political party. They are supposed to have offices in at least all the constituencies. We can say on authority that the Ghana Freedom Party does not even have, even in the Greater Accra region alone, they don't have up to 5 offices. So all of these things are part of the current challenge we are in now, and we'll see. We probably will have to wait and hear from the party themselves, and then also how that ties into the electoral.
In fact, it was one of the reasons why she didn't make the ballot in 2016, particularly. It was one of the main rules that the Charlotte Osei-led Electoral Commission tried to implement, and it affected a number of the political parties, saying that, well, the law is that you are supposed to have presence across the constituencies, and so they had wanted that to take place as well. Again, under the Constitution, political parties are generally required to have democratic structures in place. So in terms of how they elect the officials and all of those things must be reflective of the national system that we're running. So that again brings to bear the political party structure and how effective it is. But look, trust me, in terms of the placing faith, I'm sure many people will be surprised when they saw that she had placed faith in the 2020 elections. I mean, ahead of a host of other candidates, some whom many consider to be the main individuals who should be leading the political party.
Right, so if you're just joining us, this is Election 360. We've just been profiling Madam Akua Donkor, one of the presidential candidates seeking to lead the country in 2024. She passed away in the early hours of this morning, and the news is that the political party has 10 days or has a few days to write to the Electoral Commission, and after the EC is formally notified, they have 10 days to decide or not whether to ask the party to replace the candidate, or the EC probably might have to also think about what happens next. Does that shift all the parties up if they blank out the number? A lot of questions, but very few answers. Ours is to just help you understand what the law says. And again, some of these things, 2024 has thrown up a lot of interesting issues because these are uncharted territories. It's not happened clearly before. This is the first time something like this is happening. So it's helping us consolidate our democracy. So maybe later we'll try and let's bring you. So the last known video of Madam Akua Donkor was at the IPAC meeting. A short snippet of that. Then maybe we'll delve into some other subjects we have for you on Election 360.
Because soon 2 billion, trillion, the magic of Bahama. 17,000 1 Sikati Yana. Let me know. Minimum. I am the natural say. And you can see a family. Now, Minyani Pana, and I said to Ghana. Remember what I said, the little court to use in the penny for. Remember what that's. Remember your journey. And I also have a penniness. And I bet your journal. The CP, I catch and say, I'm a penniness, a crack out the doctor. Your doctor train. One family, and yes, sir. I don't know, sir. Let's say, let's say, what are you? Let's say,
that's Madam Akua Donkor, one of the first few women who set up, in fact, she's the first woman to have set up a political party. We also have Nana Kodede Ajiman Rawlings forming her own party, but she had some backing. She's a cocoa farmer, very, poised when it comes to politics, passed away in the early hours of this morning, and we are told that a lot of issues, a lot of activities are happening in her home region of the Ashanti region. And we'll try and give all of those perspectives in the next bulletin, which will come after the show. But for now, though, we say she should rest in peace. We see what the Electoral Commission and the Ghana Freedom Party will be doing in the next few hours. Let's go to one of our major subjects we have for you this morning. It has to do with the concerns about voter turnout. Now, this is coming on the back of the fact that the renewed conflict in the Boko area has sparked fears of a possible low voter turnout, or probably there may not be voting at all if the situation persists and it's not brought under control. Joseph is still with me in studio. Let's try and make a sense of what exactly has happened, what it has to do with voter turnout since '92 when we became a nation that wants to go down the path of democracy. So we are looking at what is voter turnout in the first place. Simply put, it's the people who have legally registered and have the right to cast a ballot to elect either a president or a parliamentary candidate. How have the numbers looked like since '92? I mean,
So it's what looks like a zigzag, like what we were told in primary school. But if you look at it closely, you see a number of different stories springing up. And so first, an overview of how it looks like. So we see 1992, 50.2% of the registered voters showed up and participated in the election. The number went up to 77.8% in 1996. It dropped to 61.7% in 2000. Went up again in 2004 to 85.1%, dropped to 69.5%. Then it went up again to 79.5%, dropped in 2016 to 69.3%, and it goes up again to 79.5%. That is what the data looks on its own as a raw data. But when you do the analysis closely, there are some important years to keep in mind.
Right.
The first is the fact that whenever there is a high voter turnout, you see it going in favor of the governing party. So first, let's start from
the incumbent.
The incumbent.
Okay.
So let's start from 1996. Chairman Rawlings is seeking a second term. Our voter turnout goes up from 50.2% to 77.8%, and he wins the general election. So that's the first time we see that trend happen. From there, we go over to 2004, a second term. The voter turnout again goes up from 61.7 to 85.1%, and he wins again. Then you go over to 2016, where you go over to 2020 actually, 2020.
Yes, 2020.
So even before then, for 2012. So if you look at 2012, John Mahama, John Mahama is seeking a second term on behalf of the NDC. It goes up to 79.5. The NDC wins the national elections. Then for 2020, you see what happens there again. You have Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo seeking a second term. Then it shoots up to 79.5%. So we see the trend here. When more people show up on the register to vote, you have the situation where the incumbent or the governing party tends to win the national election.
Okay.
On the other hand, the flip side of that story is the fact that where there is a decline, opposition party tends to also take advantage of the situation. So we see in the year 2000, the MPP is in opposition, seeking to come to power, they win the election. You go over to the drop in 2008, you see the drop 69.5%. Again, you have the NDC in opposition, trying to replace John Ajikun Kufuor. Professor Mills wins the election. Yeah. Then you come to 2016, now Dankwa Akufo-Addo seeking to replace John Dramani Mahama. He again wins the election. Okay. So that is one story that this data tells.
Okay.
But there are other stories that we can also surmise from this particular spread. It's about the fact that for 2020, we compiled a new register. Again, 2012, there was a new register. And 2004 as well, we had a new voters register. So that also raises the question of the credibility of the electoral roll. Because, mind you, our voters register, we are simply compiling the names of people who are registered to vote. Now, in a couple of years, a lot of people die. There are people who are not around, they relocate and all sorts of things. Yeah. Now, when we do the exhibition, people are ordinarily supposed to show up and say that this gentleman has died, so he's no longer on the register. So we take the person's name off. But because people don't participate in the exhibition, all those names remain on the roll. So what it means is that mathematically, if you are calculating the ratio, it will be those who have shown up over the total registered times 100. Right. So the base denominator still remains big because all those names are on the register with only few people showing up. So what it means is that the numbers will still be low. It will still be low. And so the argument is made that, well, 2004, we sanitized the register. So now the register is at least closer to accurate. So that is how come it's gone up. Okay. There are those who again go and say that, look, 2012 as well, new register, credible, closer to the number, so more people are showing up. Then you go over to 2020 again, new register, they'll say that we are closer to the numbers again, credible. So more people have shown up to cast their ballots. Yes, and it's interesting to also note that those are the years that we have the low turnouts are years that we have new governments coming in, like you indicated. So in 2000, that was when John Ajikun Kufuor was coming in. And, you know, we probably would have to get some further understanding maybe from the Electoral Commission. Why is it that whenever we have a new president coming in or new party forming the next government, voter turnout drops? What informs that? Why is that the case? And you also tied it into the fact that we have a higher percentage of voter turnout when the current government is seeking re-election. Could it be that between the time they were in government and the first 4 years of the administration, the voter register seems normal, so it's the same one we take into the election? Could that be what's accounting for it? Possibly. Then, to tie it into the Boko situation, we looked at the Upper East region data. And what we've done with this particular graph that you have on your screen is we've tried to put the attendance side by side. And so the national one is the dark bars that you have, then the blue one is that of the Upper East region alone. And if you look at it, you just see that they are virtually the same. So it tells the same story as well. The two issues, either it is as a result of the credibility issues around the register, or it's generally because of voter apathy at the 8-year cycle 10. All right. And so if you look at 92, you see 51.5, 50.2. The national and Upper East region are around the same level. 96 to the same trend you have over there. It goes on and on and on and on. And we can replicate the same analysis that we did previously to all that is happening here. You see that the 10. So when you are doing the 8-year 10 in 2000, you see that it will favor the opposition party seeking to come in. If you look at 2020, the governing party seeking re-election. It's at 79.5 nationally. It's at 82.3 in the area. So if we depend on which of the analysis you want to side with, if the normal one about how it favors governing parties or anything to go by, then the opposition in this world will not want people to show up in the election to vote, because if more people shows up, it means that the NPP may break the 8. If less people shows up, it means that the NDC are likely to win simply because of voter apathy and all of that attendance issues. Right, and it's also interesting to note that the statistics we've
put together is from 1992. So it paints a picture from right when we started voting up until now. And if the 8-year cycle is anything to go by, the NPP technically have had their 8-year tenure. So if the data is anything to go by, and I'm putting this as a caveat, then it means that by extrapolation, the NDC is likely to win the next election. If this is anything to go by. But then again, you are the final decider, you the viewer, you the voter, you the registered voter. You are the final decider. Who leads the development in the Upper East region around the Boku enclave, where some insecurities have caused the government to even place renew the curfew in that area. It has brought all political activities to a halt and is really affecting campaigning, etc. When you are there as someone who is going to be voting, will the insecurity in the area also influence your decision to vote or not? We've just analyzed the voter turnout and its attendant impact on the elections. Maybe in subsequent shows, we'll try and even dig deeper and find out from you, the individual, what informs your decision to vote either way. And have you changed your mind over time, or you are the type that votes for one party all through, irrespective of who is on the paper? Details of that and more will be rolled out here as we build up to December 7, 2024. You're still watching Election 360. My name is Martin Esiedidati. I'm here with Joseph Akable. We're trying to crunch the numbers and make sense, help you make sense of them. It's time now, though, for Constituency Watch. 360 on TV3. Time now for Constituency Watch, and I indicated you need to be very glued to the show because the constituencies that we discuss here could be your constituency next. But today we are starting from the Yapei Kusawgu constituency. Now, it's a seat comfortably won by the NDC, with current Member of Parliament John Abdullahi Jinapor seeking another term. The NPP will, however, want to make a claim this time around. There's more in the following report.
The Yapei Kusawgu constituency is one of 7 constituencies in the Savannah region. It is the largest constituency in the region and is described as an industrial hub, hosting factories such as Savasem, Bost and the Share Processing Factory. Agriculture remains the primary livelihood for the local population, with the Black Volta River flowing through parts of the constituency. However, residents face significant challenges, including a poor road network and inadequate health and education infrastructure. The National Democratic Congress (NDC) has held this seat since its creation in 1992, making it a stronghold for the party. According to the Provisional Register of the Electoral Commission for the 2024 general elections, the constituency has 71,324 registered voters, 180 polling stations and 30 electoral areas. Alhaji Amadu Seidu represented the constituency from 1992 until he stepped down in 2016 for John Abdullahi Jinapor, who has since secured a seat for the NDC. In the 2020 elections, Jinapor won with 28,254 votes, representing 59.05%, defeating the NPP's Salia Idrisu, who garnered 19,584 votes, which is 40.95%. For the presidential election, John Dramani Mahama received 31,525 votes, which is 65.17%, while Akua polled 15,779 votes, which is 32.90%. This year, 3 candidates are contesting: the incumbent MP John Abdullahi Jinapor, NPP's Amadou Zakaria, and independent candidate Awuju Adam. For both major political parties, this election is crucial.
If you look at the election this year, it's going to be a historic one. Historic in the sense that we have somebody who have come and we have seen what he can do. And we have also had a vice president who have also come and we have seen what he can do. So it's going to be a keen contest. But at the end, with the development that I have seen that the NPP party is doing, we are likely to carry the day.
It is obvious that NDC is winning the 2024 elections, both parliamentary and presidential. I mean, I am saying it is obvious because for this constituency, right from the inception, it has been a safe seat for the NDC. I mean, and it is not just because we decided to be voting for NDC, but we have always received a fair share of the national cake at this level.
Voters' choices will be influenced by the development policies of the two main parties as they head to the polls December 7.
So 8 years now, we are not seeing development. No access road, no drinking water, no public toilet, no drainage system. So I've seen that voting NDC, always NDC, we are not seeing development. So this year, we, the youth, are coming out to make a change. We need to also change the different party for the election, for the parliamentary. We need to bring a different candidate so that we'll see what he can also do for us.
Voting na baby voting ebe tu baby na yedi MPP for yesere omu boye so mu ntimi a omu ndia ne dwama beji omu sese a yedidwa hwe mi sto na we
The economy is now hard. The NPP should help us if they can, and if they cannot, they should allow the NDC to take over. People now buy on credit. I buy on credit to fill my shop, and people also do same to me. If they do not pay on time, it is a problem for me.
Will incumbent John Jinapor retain his seat for a third term, or will he be unseated by either the NPP candidate or the independent candidate? Voters in the Yapei Kusawgu constituency will decide on December 7.
All right, so that's the Yapei Kusawgu constituency in the Savannah region. Let's try and look at the numbers and how it's played out in the last few years. Going to the magic wall now. So Yapei Kusawgu, the presidential elections has always been a very safe seat for the NDC, like we indicated. There's no doubt about it. And then again, if even you look at the numbers that John Dramani Mahama got as presidential candidate as against that of the parliamentary candidate, he did much better. So the constituents primarily are saying, for instance, if you give 65% of total votes cast to John Mahama and then 51% to the parliamentary candidate, it tells you that the party even had more support for the presidential candidate and the party in general than the parliamentary candidate. So it's always been a very safe, comfortable constituency for the NDC. And this is the result for the parliamentary as well. The NDC has won throughout, so it's 7 out of 7 elections. The NPP is still struggling to make inroads. And per the numbers that we have, the total voter population in the Yapei Kusawgu constituency is in excess of 71,000, and 65.1% of that number voted for the NDC. We have 32% voting for the NPP. Compared to previous electoral years, the NPP's numbers have appreciated quite marginally. Same for the NDC as well. But for a party that has lost consistently in a constituency to be making over 30% of votes tells you that they may not win, but definitely they are clawing a sizable chunk of the numbers into their fold. And if things go the way we are seeing, if the trend continues, it's likely that they might end up making it a bit more difficult for the NDC. So it tells you that both parties need to craft their messaging to get to the hearts and minds of the people. And this is the voter difference. So 19,592 people voted for the NPP, 28,254 voted for the NDC, and look at the vote difference. This is 40.4, and that's at the last election. I'm talking specifically about the 2020 elections, the parliamentary results, and this is a vote difference of just about 8,000. So 8,000 can actually create some discomfort for the NDC. Because if the difference of the 8,000 is anything to go by, and mind you, other people contest as well. And in the 2024 elections, we know there's a GUM representative, or the Ghana Union Movement have also thrown in a candidate there. If the person is an indigene, fulfills all the criteria for an individual who wants to contest, and has a good backing by the constituents there, is likely to steal the numbers of either party and might probably cause these numbers to change drastically in 2024. But per the 2020 results, the NDC has had a very comfortable lead of 59.05%. The NPP also about 41%, you can safely say, because it's 40.9%. And this is the vote difference of just about 8,000. So it looks like it's safe, but the NPP is making inroads, and John Jinapor is seeking a third term, like we indicated in that report. And Amadou Zakaria, the NPP candidate, is also trying to make a return and hoping that they'll get the nod from the constituents of the NPP. So that's the Yapei Kusawgu constituency in perspective for you. And it looks like if all of this is anything to go by, definitely on December 7, when our reporters go on the ground, or probably before then, we'll try and figure out what the decision-making points will be for a number of these candidates who are seeking the mandate of the constituency in the Yapei Kusawgu constituency. So that's from the Savannah region. We've just put it in perspective for you, specifically the Yapei Kusawgu constituency. Away from that, we are going now to our next major aspect of Election 360, which is the campaign trail. And on the campaign trail, we'll be starting from the Greater Accra region, where we are told that the candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has started yet another campaign tour of the region. So in a jiffy, we'll speak to our correspondent who is on the campaign trail of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I'm talking about Daniel Opoku, who will join us shortly. Then would also cross to the camp of the NDC, where John Dramani Mahama, the flag bearer, is in the northern part of the country and has actually been canvassing for votes, touched on a number of national issues. Details of the specifics of what's been said on the various campaigns in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Election 360. All right, so we are going straight to the camp of the New Patriotic Party. Flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is in the Greater Accra region. He truncated his OT regional campaign tour and is back in the Greater Accra region. Let's find out from Daniel Opoku what the itinerary looks like for the NPP flag bearer. Daniel, thank you for joining us on Election 360. Where exactly is the NPP flag bearer, and what does the day look like in terms of the campaign itinerary?
Right, so good afternoon to you, Martin. I'm currently the Vice President of the NPP flag bearer within the markets of Accra. This morning he began his tour at the Tuesday market, which is located around Manprobi within the Kolegono area, where he exchanged pleasantries with the market women, also traders as well. And basically what he's trying to tell them is that there is a need for them to vote for him. When they went to the Tuesday market this morning, those who believe that he has to win the elections also come back to help revive the market, help them to rebuild or renovate the market. Right from Tuesday market, he moved to Rollins Park area, where he also is the same thing, exchanging pleasantries with market women, and so basically asking them to vote for him to win this year's election. That's the decision of the Vice President or the flag bearer of the NPP, Dr. Mahmoud, asking the market to vote for him. And the reception has been very huge and encouraging. There are those who really bumped into him, and others are praising him. They are waiting for him to win this year's election to become the president, because they believe that when he becomes the president, their lives will improve and also be able to champion most of his social intervention policies.
Right. Maybe the last bit will also be, so what is the exact message? Because we know that the candidates have either region-specific messages they craft for the regions. He's in Greater Accra, but these areas that he has started visiting or has already been to, what exactly is he telling them beyond just vote for me, let me be president? I'm sure he's been a bit more specific. Daniel.
When you listen to the Vice President or the NPP flag, but consistently he's talking about, when you look at his statement, the statement is structured in three parts. The first part has to look at the Vice President being as a Vice President, and also the policy that he supported the current President Akua Donkor to champion, for instance, the free SHS policy, the drone program, the digitalization programs. And secondly, the second part of the statement looks at what will be putting across when he becomes the President. The crux of the issue has to do with agriculture, where the various areas of the constituencies that he visited, he talked about the need to set up a mechanized center where farmers should be supported with fertilizers and also farm implements. And a women empowerment system will also be set up where soft loans will also be provided for market women and traders. Then other digitalization processes are yet to be rolled out. Basically, consistently, all the over 200 constituencies that the vice president has been to, that has been his message. And the message has been sinking down to the people, maintaining the free SSS program from 2017 till now. In excess of 5 million students have benefited. When it comes to TVET, in excess of 6 billion Ghana cedis has also been used to spend it to spearhead the growth of the TVET basically.
All right. Daniel, thank you for that report. He's on the campaign trail of the NPP's flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. In a bit, we'll cross over to speak to Komla Kluche, who is on the trail of the NDC's flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama. Let's put the Greater Accra in perspective for you in terms of numbers and try and help you understand why both parties are pretty keen on winning the Greater Accra region. And like we indicated, there is a good reason why both parties have crisscrossed this region. The NPP flag bearer is here. Right from time immemorial, everybody who's followed elections in the Greater Accra region will understand that it is a massive swing region. It has voted twice for the NPP, twice for the NDC, and the only outlier was in the 2020 elections when the NDC, although they won the region, did not win the government of the day. So if you look at the numbers from 92, maybe we should just shift forward to from 2012. From 2012, the NDC got 52.3% and won the elections. In 2016, that's when Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo came and became president. He won the Greater Accra region by 52.4%, which is just a percentage point higher than what John Mahama got. And if you look at the numbers in terms of what they got in the Greater Accra region, 2012, NPP had 46.9%. NPP, and when NDC won, they lost the 2016 elections. They got 46.7%. So it tells you that there was a further decline in the defeat the NDC suffered in 2016. In 2020, the NDC won all right. They had 51.0%. The NPP got 48.1%. However, the NDC did not form the government of the day. So that's one of the interesting outliers. Probably we can go into the dynamics in subsequent shows. But that's what the Greater Accra is looking like. Let's go to the northern region now. Komla Kluche is a man embedded in the campaign trail of John Dramani Mahama. Komla, thank you for joining us. So where exactly is the campaign of JM now as we speak? Komla, kindly unmute for me so I can hear you.
Martin, I'm saying that it's a long drive from Tamale en route now to the Pandai constituency. He would be doing the Pandai constituency, Willency, and then he would come to Bimbila, and then finally he would come to Yendi. Don't forget, Bimbila and Yendi, these are constituencies, quite strongholds of the NPP. The defense minister holds that seat, and also in Yendi, the dynamics, that the NPP holds it quite dear. But what are some of the things John Mahama has been speaking about? The issue about the economy is quite key when it comes to the messaging it delivers to the people. But essentially, he's equally been talking about how truthful leadership should be to the people of this country because of the situation we find ourselves in. And he doesn't find that Akufo-Addo Bawumia anywhere nearer to the conduct that the nation requires. But you will recall in 2016, Dr. Bawumia posed 170 questions to the late Dave Kwesi Misa-Atta, to which he said he wasn't able to answer. Kwesi Misa-Atta, I recall at the time, told him that, he doesn't know what the situation is. But now, John Mahama has been posing 3 questions and 3 other supplementary ones to Dr. Bawumia. This is what he had to say in Tatale last night when he was speaking to the people. Let's listen to him.
170 questions to my Vice President, Emi Sata. He should go and answer the 170 questions himself. Indeed, he shouldn't answer 170 questions. He should answer only 3 questions. 3. Why is the exchange rate 17 cedis to the dollar? Question 1. Exam, he should come and write. Ezu, why has Ghana's debt risen from 120 billion to 767 billion in 8 years? Question 2, he should come and answer. Question 3, why is inflation where it is? Why did it rise to 54% under your administration for 8 years? And then let me add 2 more. Question 4, why did you borrow 42 billion cedis from the Bank of Ghana? Why did you borrow 42 billion cedis from the Bank of Ghana?
All right, so Komla Kluche, thank you for that report. We just heard the questions that John Mahama has posed to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as to whether he will answer them or not. We only wait to see. But thank you, Komla Kluche, who is on the campaign trail of John Mahama, who is in the northern region. Let's talk about the northern region in numbers quickly for you. Look at it from 2016. The red line shows a comfortable win. Well, maybe not too comfortable, but then it's been a zigzag win for the NDC. It's even getting too keen or too uncomfortable for the NDC in the latter part of the graph, talking about the 2020 elections. But the only time the NPP made the most impact was in 2000 when John Agyekum Kufuor became president. His numbers shot to 48.6%, the highest the party had recorded in the history of our elections. The NDC increased its vote in 2004, although that was when John Kufuor was seeking a re-election. The constituents in the northern region decided to even increase the vote margin for the NDC to 61.1%. That's the second highest voter turnout or vote support for the NDC. But let's talk about 2016 and 2020. 2016, the NDC started having a massive decline. In fact, from 2008, after the runoff, the NDC's numbers have been coming down and the NPP's numbers are actually climbing up. Don't know whether in 2024 on December 7th the numbers will clash, or probably the NDC might cross down, the NPP might cross up. That is why John Mahama has decided to go back to the northern region to intensify the campaign, drum home the reason why they need to vote for him, and we'll definitely see how all of this plays out, considering the fact that it has been a safe seat for the region. Northern region has been quite good to the NDC, but the numbers have been flip-flopping and dilly-dallying. We'll see what it means in December, on December 7, 2024. That's it for our show. Thank you for watching. Up next is News Central. My name is Martin Esiedu Date. You have a good day. Hasta la vista.